Good evening and welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well.
3,000 but it's the next iteration of an existing system.
But it's a design. It's not manufacturing anything.
I think there should be, there are restrictions. You have to be licensed to carry a weapon.
Addiction, and I think that if we took a more compassionate approach, we might find more of a solution.
Radical swing of the pendulum. Now we're, it's more liberal, more progressive, more.
It's time for us to honor those folks who, send comments to it.
And good evening. Welcome to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality is our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well, with myths to dispel. I'm sorry to say that Mr. Paul Crowley is in Denver, Colorado, commiserating with his life in order to bring better services to seniors, which is a good thing. But in his stead, we travel far and wide to get someone that is his equal, none other than Sean Donahue. How are you, Sean? Welcome to Frankly Speaking.
Very well, thanks for having me on the show. I definitely wouldn't consider myself an equal as Paul just yet. He does a lot of good stuff in the city, but I aspire to be just as good as him someday, definitely.
Oh, you should. Listen, I want the folks out there to understand this segment, and I don't know, Pedro, whether we have it up or not, of the producers. Do we have that little graphic? Because it's got your smiling face and Dave Riley's and, Sean Donahue. You are, in effect, and by the way, these are the three that make things happen at Lynn Community TV. So, you are the centerpiece of this triumvirate, is right? The three amigos?
Yeah, I manage the team. Dave Riley Jr. and Pedro Diaz Jr. Both of those guys are a huge asset to what we do here. My job is really just kind of organizing their day-to-day. A lot of the brunt work gets done from them, so without them, we wouldn't really be able to do what we do.
Amen, I agree with that. Although, don't sell yourself shut. You did go to Fitchburg State. You did do communications. It isn't like you came here without any credentials.
I went to Fitchburg State to get my butt kicked in football when I played at Framingham State. But yeah, Framingham State, went there. It was a nice little school.
Oh, it's Framingham State? I thought it was Fitchburg. My mistake.
You must have been thinking about that whooping that we got my freshman year of football.
That was it?
Yeah, it was atrocious. We won't talk about the score. It was a lot to a little.
So tell me, it's been somewhat difficult making the transition from an old studio to City Hall, and what's in the future, by the way?
So we have a new location. It's picked out. We'll make an announcement soon. Lease is signed, so we're hoping we'll be in full operations by February 2017. At our studio, or our new projected studio, we'll have a functioning studio, control room, some offices for our staff, a members area for editing, and plenty of equipment for people to rent out.
How about live and calling?
Yeah, that's hopefully a goal that we're going to be doing. We're playing around with the ability to go live right now. We're somewhat limited in that ability due to the lack of infrastructure that exists, but that will be something that we're working towards in the future. I believe we'll be filming the election results show live from right here inside the studio. So we're making gains in that ability, but having live call-in shows is definitely something that we want to do. We'll probably have a little bit more of a process in place for producers to accept live-in calls. If you're at home and you're on your computer, you can just Google public access live-in callers, and you'll get a good laugh as to why we're trying to add this process in there. But yeah, live call-in shows is something that we'll be working towards. Training is something that we're offering already. Yeah, we're really moving forward with this thing.
I noted that when I came in earlier that you were giving some instructions to an individual who, as a matter of fact, is now working one of the cameras. And I noted that when we come in here, there's a variety of people who are accessing the computers. So you do a lot of training here also?
Yeah, so we're the public and government station. It's widely accepted as public access, but today it's called PEG Media. And PEG is an acronym for Public, Education, and Government. And those are really the three pillars to public access. So today, Joe, you're here in the Public and Government Station. We're responsible for bringing up-to-date news and information in regards to the Lynn community and its government. So that's why we film city council meetings or ZBA meetings, licensing meetings, traffic meetings, all those different types of meetings that we play in air is to give our viewership insight as to what's going on in the local government. What you're referring to when you come in, you see me working with people, explaining
Right.
how to use cameras.
Young people, by the way, from the tech and other high schools come in here as interns?
Yeah, we bring those guys in through the cooperative program. It's a great program over at Tech, where the senior students with the applicable grades can take their shop week and work in a real life business. So this is something that we've been doing since our career in public access. We've always really kind of worked with the cooperative students. They're a huge help. We have Michaela and Chloe. Michaela's a football player, Chloe's a singer, both seniors over at Lynn Tech, outstanding kids. They follow directions well, and they're really fitting in nicely. But back to the training, training's a big part of this. So we're talking about PEG media, public education and government.
Right.
The public aspect is giving people an outlet to express themselves on broadcast television. So the reason why public access exists is when the FCC came into play, they were really responsible for, hey, why are you doing this? Or why are you trying to communicate this
Slow
way?
down 1 second.
Sorry about that.
FCC goes over a lot of people's heads. Does the federal government get involved? Right? Federal Communications Commission, is that
Right.
what it is? And why would they be interested, or why would they intervene in cable television, local cable access?
They don't really intervene in it. The FCC sets the rules and standards in place for all of people trying to communicate.
Yeah,
over
but
medium
what
waves.
was the mindset of the FCC and what you're talking about?
So the FCC, the reason why they come into play is because cable providers came into existence. And at the time, television was free. People were able to receive television via radio waves, and it was very accessible. So in order to keep some type of civil obedience on these waves, you have the establishment of the Federal Radio Commission first, and then the FCC once television came into play. So the cable providers said, well, we want to install an infrastructure in your local communities. We want to provide you a more sustainable signal, and we'll charge you subscriptions. So the FCC said, well, how are you going to charge subscriptions to people when they have a product that's already free? And they mentioned, well, you're going to get tons of more channels, and that's when public access came into play. If the cable providers want to offer their product in the community, like Lynn or Peabody or Gloucester or any of the North Shore towns, they have to provide a means to the public to exercise their First Amendment rights via broadcast media.
Of expression.
Right, so we're here to help people express themselves. So it's really television without a price tag attached. We're a non-commercial television station, so we don't have to listen to what Crest wants, or we don't have to listen to what Amica wants, or any of those big, huge advertising guys, because we don't generate our budget that way. Our budget is allocated through a portion of what the subscribers pay towards the cable subscription. The cable providers in the city of Lynn are Comcast and Verizon. So we're at the Public and Government Station. Education is handled by the Lynn Public Schools. Small portion of your bill, if you look at it, it says franchising fees and licensing. I think it's like 33 cents on mine. That's what goes to cable access. And that's how we run this thing. And we use the money to enable members. We buy them equipment. We train them on the equipment. We update our softwares, all that different types of stuff.
So actually, in effect, this is a a community effort. So
Right.
when we say Lynn Community TV, it's exactly that.
Right.
And so you have the young people from the colleges working as interns, learning skills. You have the general public can come in here as a cameraman. Ellen works here, donates her time. I've seen a lot of folks here come in and working on the computers. So this is actually a good thing. And downstream, you're talking about early 2017, going to have a new home.
That's right.
Not bad. And by the way, you may go live for the election. So that leads me right to 4 ballot questions that are hot and ready. Ready? So, I don't know, Pedro, do we have the highlights up there on the screen? And you got a magnificent, I've said this to you before, folks, this guy has perfect diction. And for someone who has difficulty hearing, I appreciate it. So, why don't you give a little rundown of the highlights of those 4 ballot questions?
So we'll cover the questions one by one.
Question 1, what would it be?
Question 1 is all about gaming. So this would allow the Gaming Commission to issue additional slot licenses. How do you feel about this question, Joe?
Well, it's interesting because the word "and" additional, which means exactly one. So they have one, and there's going to be another, right? That's what it comes down to. We will talk about them after we go through the rundown. So what's number 2?
Number 2 would authorize the approval up to 12 new charter schools or enrollment expansion in existing charter schools by the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education per year. Question 2 is a big one.
Well, here's the interesting part about that, Sean. Right now, there's 120. So what they're talking about is an additional 12, which is a 10% increase. That's actually kind of modest when you think about it. What about number 3?
Number 3 would prohibit certain methods of farm animal containment.
I have no idea what that is, but we're going to discuss that. I have a sympathy for animals, though.
I know a little bit about it.
You do?
Yeah, we organized some special LCTV shows, which is our platform program. They focused on each of the 4 questions. So we invited on the authors, which you could find in the 2016 election information for voters. So we set it up in gave them each 15 minutes to present their argument and explain the benefits of a yes or no /vote. And you can see those on our station. They'll be playing throughout the election season.
Perfect. That's another good aspect of Lynn Community TV.
Right, affording our viewership with information. So
I think this is the big one, number 4.
Number 4 would legalize recreational marijuana for individuals at least 21 years old. Big question. It's been something that we've been talking about.
There's a lot of subtext to that question, which we'll get to. I don't know whether we have this. Folks, please forgive us because it's not the fault of our production team or the producers. It's actually my fault. I don't know whether we have this up. It's like a no on question. It says, and by the way, this was done by the progressivemass.com. It's an advocacy group. So what they're saying is they're going to vote. They're advising you folks to vote no on question 1 and yes on the other 3. Now, question 1 would allow the Gaming Commission to issue an additional license. We said that. Now, I always say follow the money, Sean. Listen to this one. $1.1 million has been spent in favor of it. You know how much for no? $50. And you know what? It's going to go down the tubes, even though $1.1 million is being spent actually by the individual who wants to put this in there. However, Revere said, we don't want it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big advocator for the will of the people.
Yeah.
It really shouldn't come down to how much money you can throw at folks. At the end of the day, it's about the votership. So, we'll see what those guys want. It's pretty obvious as to why people are, saying, they don't want it. They're clear about it. Some of them, it may be a moral issue. Others believe that, it's an issue of infrastructure, that it could complicate things, especially, we're a gateway.
Traffic, yeah.
We're a gateway to the city of Boston. Some folks who are in favor of it may talk to the fact that, hey, we're generating a bigger tax base, we're bringing in better jobs. But again, we could argue about it all day.
Yeah,
at the
end
of
of
the day,
trade-offs.
yeah.
It's not cut and dry.
Right.
I have a tendency, because I love to gamble, I would probably be in favor of it. The Progressive Caucus is opposed to it, so we'll let that slide. The people of Revere are opposed to it. That's more important, like you said. Now, if we follow the money, let's go to question 2, which is huge. And the yes side, $17.5 million. And that's not counting recent. This is, maybe a week or 2 old. On the yes side. On the no side, there's $9.3 million. So this is a heavy, heavy, heavy expense. In fact, I saw on TV, Governor Baker is for it all the way. And if we flash up some of the luminaries in this state and how they feel about it, we have Baker saying yes on TV and everywhere. And we have Elizabeth Warren, Tommy McGee, Creighton, and locally, and our council president, Danny Kael, saying no. So is this a partisan thing or what? What do you think?
I don't know. I got some newsletter in the mail from Barack Obama saying, to vote yes on question 2.
Barack Obama's in favor of yes on question 2?
That's what the mailing that I had said. So I mean,
wow.
I was surprised myself. But the way that I look at it, I'm a big fan of capitalism. I think that it's important that we have competition. Especially as a coach, I've seen competition bring the best out of people. I think that if you look at the school systems now and the amount of people who have something negative to say about it, maybe it's time to allow somebody else to come in and give it a shot. You know, I think, again, it's all about the will of the people, what's best for that local community. You know, so it's going to come down to the election.
Actually, right? I mean,
Right.
in effect, it's like you said. And by the way, we're talking about 10% increase in charter schools. On the surface, that looks like a good idea. Competition will help out, and some kids will be able to escape underperforming schools. The unions, who are the reason why you see those folks who are against it, because the teachers union, National Teachers Union, is heavily opposed and sent a lot of money in from outside opposing it. Now, their opposition is based on the fact, as they claim, that money is leaving the public schools as a consequence, which isn't really true because charter schools are public schools of a different nature, correct? Now, I have a problem with this. If someone is going to Lynn English and suddenly goes to KIPP Academy, whatever allocated money that per pupil cost goes to KIPP. Now, if that kid decides to leave KIPP and go back to English, I say the money should come back. It doesn't. That's where the problem lies, and I'm simply saying you could correct that problem quite easily, particularly with McGee, Creighton, and Danny Kael being in the legislature, to fix that. If that's the case, then it's a dead issue.
Yeah, I mean, I could see what you're saying, Joe. I mean, at the same time, I can see how that would really muck things up, because you've got a group of kids who go over there and then they decide, well, maybe this isn't the school for us. You've got cliques, and now all of a sudden the charter school sets out to educate this many kids. They've already allocated for that. They've approved the budget. So to keep sending that money back and forth, you know.
Well, they could do proportionality. They could say, well, listen, if you spend 1 month at this, they could do a per diem. If the kid, because teachers are paid per diem, people don't realize that. So if they put a per diem formula on there, so if the kid is at that particular school for X amount of days, that's X amount of dollars. If he's at English high school for X amount of days, that's X amount of dollars. You know, we can work these things out. It's just a little creativity and imagination, and to satisfy all bases. You know, currently, I think that the unions have a point, that you cannot allow someone to money to follow and then not return if the person comes back into the other system. We're losing, the city of Lynn's losing about $17 million a year on that predicate. Statewide, it's about $400 million. That's a big ticket. So it has to be rethought. Now, you know about question 3. I do not. I just have an affinity for animals, I guess. You know, so I see a little piggy and I see a little hen sitting on top of a bunch of eggs. Now, on the yes side, they've spent $569,000, which is not a heck of a lot, in favor of it, and opposed to it, 237. The progressives want you to vote yes on this. What do you think? Prevent animal cruelty, I guess, is the question.
I mean, you know, I'm a little bit more conservative in my political views, so I'm not a big fan of the government telling a private business on how to do things. I think those who are speaking against this question are big in the egg industry.
Yeah.
So, you know, what this means for them is obviously chicken coops, things like that. Based on what I understand about it is, you know, the way that the chickens are left in a coop, free-range chickens are actually just stuck in a big pen. A lot of them are, you know, it's called free-range chickens, but they're not like grazing on a farm or anything like that. They're just in a bigger pen with more chickens. It's dangerous for the chickens because they can peck at each other. You know, am I an advocate for, you know, human rights, making sure that this is met with some humanity, you know, that these animals are being killed with dignity? You know, I pray for my food every time I receive it. May the animals not be taken in vain. That's something that I say every day. And I think that that's important, but at the same time, if a business and then as a result that family or a community are going to suffer, you know, that's something to consider. What's really important about this question is that it doesn't take effect until, I think, 2022 or 2020.
Why do they always do that?
You know,
Well,
because
you gotta
it gives
pass
them
a law, have the law go into effect, and if it isn't working, you know what? Change it.
because it
are
takes
rescinded.
It takes some overhead, you know. For think about it. If you know, just to
make the conversion you're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
So you've got, you know, Purdue. We're just spitballing here. I don't know where they're located, but you got Purdue. This law ends up passing, right? And they've got to treat these animals. They got to give them their own individual cages. You got to give them time to procure that. You got to give them time to, you know, adjust their process, set up their soft infrastructure so that their employees know the process and protocol. So, you know, the law doesn't really take effect until a long time away. You know, I do think that it's going to, you know, cause some fluctuations in prices. The fact that you already have free-range eggs available to buy should be left
Cost
up.
a little more.
Right, should be, and it's left up to the consumer to
But
decide
that's your
what
choice,
they want.
right? If you want to pay more money for
Right.
it, that's your choice. That's a good point.
Right.
And you're talking about the time lag is giving people of the industry an opportunity to adjust to the new realities.
Right. But the reality of it is, Joe, is that I mean, these you go to the store, you see the regular eggs, and then
Yeah.
you see the free-range eggs. The difference between those chickens isn't really that much. I mean, you know, they're not in bigger cages with couches or fountains or anything like that. They're in a big bullpen, and you know, they're all crammed together so that they can't move. The chickens that are kept in cages, I mean, they're left alone. They don't have to fend for themselves. It's a little bit it's stress-free. Yeah, they can, you know, they can stand up and they can move and stuff like that, but they're pretty much confined to that one area.
But chickens who lay eggs aren't going to end up at Chick-fil-A, right?
I don't know
I mean,
much about the industry standard. I think that you can probably eat those chickens too. Yeah, I mean, I would assume.
I understand that, but, you know, by the way, there are two great ads on TV. One is the Chick-fil-A ad that says, no more beef, right?
Right.
Eat
The cow
more chicken,
is
yeah.
holding the sign.
And the other one that I always liked, I don't know, folks, if you remember this, it was a Budweiser ad, and it came out at Thanksgiving time. And this turkey's sweating bullets because it's Thanksgiving time. And it's at a family meal, and all of a sudden the people put out a big pizza, and the turkey is relieved. So if people thought about Elsie the cow, would they eat cheeseburgers? If people thought about what they're eating and how they got to eat it and what happens, I wonder, because chickens are raised for food to be slaughtered, as are cows, as are lambs, as are sheep, etc. So it's a tough issue. I mean, on the one side of the coin, let's face it, we're carnivores, and even if you're a, what do they call the one that just eats vegetables?
Vegan?
That's it. Very good. You're not one, are you?
No.
Anyway, isn't it the same difference? I mean, aren't you eating something that was once alive?
Yeah.
Aren't you, you know?
I mean, yeah, well, plants are alive. There's a biology to them. There's a natural growth and
Yeah.
birthing process. The difference between them is that, you know, there's a brain connected to these animals, and you know, they have feelings, and you know, I guess, I don't know. I mean, you know, it is a tough subject because you've got a group of people who are very big into the vegetables and going, you know, meat-free, but...
Yeah, I'm not, you know, every time I see Bambi, I cry. Folks, if you've ever seen that classic movie at the end, you know. So...
It's within like the first 20 minutes, they get you right away. Yeah.
But I mean, you have to have some empathy for living things.
Absolutely.
And I wish people would have a little empathy for what is known as the unborn child. You know, that would be interesting for people to be bent out of shape on that one, too.
Yeah.
So, we got one more question to do, and I think this is a tough one. And Paul is out there in Colorado, where they're high as a kite smoking that funny stuff, right? And there's got to be a lot of huge ramifications. What's your feeling on it?
Question 4 would legalize recreational marijuana for individuals at least 21 years of age. You know, again, it comes down to the will of the people. We have products that are available to people who are 21 years of age. These products do cause health complications. They cause problems in society, and they still exist. I think that this question is kind of a little premature for the state of Massachusetts. I definitely think that it's something that's going to happen, without a doubt. I think
Do you
that
think
the
it's going to pass?
I think that it's going to pass.
You know, it's interesting. You said it's the will of the people. I'm a little concerned about the will of the people, because the will of the people in Nazi Germany wasn't all that good. You know, the will of the people was chuck these Jews in the ovens, right?
Right.
All right.
But
So-
that was based on lies and propaganda.
Well, whatever. A lot of stuff is based on lies and propaganda. Listen to this election that's going on right now. There's a lot of lies and propaganda happening there.
But it's up to the voter to do the research
Due
and
diligence?
do the homework. Yes.
Yeah, but they're not necessarily successful at it. That's the point.
Right.
For example, let me just stop you. On this particular issue, it goes into effect on December 15th. So it's passed, goes into effect on, even though it's still federally against the law, and even though it is not legal to produce, sell, and distribute it in the state. So they're going to say, if you go out there and you buy illegal pot, that's okay. Oh, by the way, you got to be 21. Now, you know what 21 means. Anybody's going to be able to get it, right? Because I remember as a young boy, I didn't drink, but a lot of my friends who under 21 got away with going into the package store, having some adult buy it, and they started drinking at a young age, even though it was 21. When they dropped it to 18, all hell broke loose, right?
Right.
I'm saying they can't control this. How do you ascertain? How do you know what the dosage is going to be? You know, there are so many ramifications to this, no one's talked about. At what point is one intoxicated?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's going to pass. I do believe that the question's a little premature for the state of Massachusetts. You know, based on the tax rate. If you look at the legislation, it's really not what people want. And on top of it, you know, with your point, yeah, kids are going to have more access to it. They have access to the things that that they're getting right now. Things
I
that
understand that, but
a lot worse than
that's
that.
not an excuse, because what you do is you put barriers. You can never get to 100% on anything.
Right.
But you should make it easier.
Right.
You should always stigmatize that which deserves to be stigmatized, okay?
Yeah.
We've lifted in our society. We have a permissive society that says anything goes. Well, it doesn't work that way. Here's the thing. Government's going to grab 3.65% tax. That's the initial tax on this new booming industry, and you and I both know it's going to boom, right? So, who's to say it's going to stay at 3.65? You know it's not going to.
That's right.
Okay, so they're going to jack it up.
Right.
And everybody, the industry, and by the way, this is it's unique. The marijuana industry is dictating to the politicians the terms of how it's going to operate, as opposed to the other way around. The regulatory agencies that should be regulating it are bypassing that in this legislation, and that allows, because if they don't act within a prescribed period of time, then the growers, manufacturers, and the vested interests dictate what the terms of agreement are going to be, or of endearment, so to speak. So I have a lot of problems with question 4 on many grounds. And ethically, I think it's terrible that we should, bad enough that we have problems and of addiction. So why would you want to compound it?
I don't know if anybody would really want to compound anything. I think, a lot of people who are advocating for, the folks who, ended up losing their jobs because they were arrested for a joint, or they're...
that's decriminalization.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're talking about those people. I mean, people who can't get a job because they were arrested for this. I mean, that's something that, people are
So you're
advocating
saying
for.
that, isn't it true that you cannot be a policeman or fireman if they find any of that substance in your bloodstream, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
All right. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's probably a good thing, but I don't also think that...
Why did they make that a condition of employment at schools, in all public arenas? Because they realize that, in effect, it hampers your capacity to make judgment calls, correct?
Yeah,
Well,
especially in those lines of work. I mean,
all right.
when you're dealing with the safety and well-being of other people...
Of course. So you're not going to be an air traffic controller with airplanes flying around high as a kite.
Right.
They'll be smashing into each other. Similarly,
You probably shouldn't
we
be
don't allow
drinking.
people who are drunk.
You probably shouldn't be drinking at those jobs either.
That's correct. So the point of the matter is, if we recognize the hazard, then we should be far more judicious in harnessing it, so to speak, caging it like you chickens you were talking about. Because if you allow this to be a free and easy society as such, we're going to be smashing into each other. I mean, that's got to be considered. That's all I'm saying.
I think America's got a lot of issues right now, from the indifference of race, to the fact of gun violence, to the use of alcoholism, all the way to how many people die from tobacco. I mean, I really don't think that if this question passes, if they were able to get this industry off the ground, that it's going to make those things any better or any worse.
But
I do
Paul,
believe this.
Sean,
I do
go
believe
ahead.
this,
Go
Joe.
ahead.
I do believe this. I believe that the question's a little premature for the state of Massachusetts. I think Massachusetts voters are smart. I think the right vote on this question is no at this point in time. But I do believe that it's going to pass because a lot of people are ready, willing, and able for this to happen. The fact that it's against the law at the federal level, that's really a big deal for me. I mean, I'm a registered libertarian. I'm a big advocate for just less government, respect my privacy and property, and let me do things the way that I want
You
to do
make a
them.
great point. I agree with you that I'm more in favor of states' rights than federal.
Yeah, so it's like...
So if the states decide they want to do something, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, our philosophy is like, less government, more freedom. But at the same time, when you have freedom, you have a lot more responsibility.
Good word.
So people need to really kind of understand that, one, like you have the ability to vote. It's not a right, it's a privilege. And furthermore, it's a responsibility. You have to be able to vote in your local elections, in your state elections. I mean, politics is a playoff. Everybody jumps in every 4 years and they vote for their party. I'm a Republican, this is who I want, or I'm a Democrat, this is who I want.
Blindly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really about, politics is a playoff. It's a system in which you have to elect people at the state level, you have to elect people at the local level. I remember I used to work selling locum tenens. It was a temp agency for doctors. And I'd call people from all different parts of the country. And the people there were very big in their states and their votership. And at the time, I think Scott Brown was running, and there was a lot of stuff going on in Massachusetts. And they were all like, I don't want to do business with Massachusetts-based business. You guys don't know how to vote up there. And it kind of put a little bit of a fire underneath my bum to get me kind of rolling and researching these people.
Of course.
Making my decision based on what I thought would be appropriate for everybody in general.
Great lesson. By the way, you're a terrific replacement for Paul Crowley, let me tell you, a voice of reason over there.
I wore a suit too, so,
What can I tell you? And by the way, you came up on another terrific point where you talked about crime and stuff like that. And we can't neglect this weekend in Chicago, 17 murders, okay? They have the strictest gun control laws in the nation. They in Washington, D.C. So gun control legislation does not prevent bad outcomes. And
Right.
people understand that. It's a societal problem. It's we have to start stigmatizing bad behavior. Because if we start tolerating it, it's a slippery slope to chaos, basically. So let's review quickly. The progressive group, they're yes on one. No on one, yes. All right, I'm going to do number one. I'm yes on one.
You're yes on one.
You're yes on one? Dubious? I mean, you don't have to agree with me.
Nah, I'm no on one.
Okay, that's good. Two.
Would authorize the approval up to 12 new charter schools or enrollment expansion in existing charter schools by the State Board Elementary and Secondary
Which way you go on
Education.
that one?
You answer first.
You're saying yes?
No, I'm asking you to answer first.
I will. I'm a school teacher, and I understand the difficulty. I'm going to put a qualified yes if, in fact, they change the formula that the money is proportional and it returns. It's just got to be distributed better. That's all. I have a problem with saying yes. I understand the position of the teachers' union. So, now, let me listen to you on this one.
On my question, I'm a big fan of competition. I think it makes everybody better. I do agree with you in a sense where they need to figure it out fiscally,
Right.
So that one group doesn't suffer and the other group doesn't benefit. I think the charter schools would probably be a benefit in the state of Massachusetts. I think it's going to open up a lot of doors for kids as well as people who want to get into the career of teaching. So I'm yes on two.
Yeah, I agree with you on everything, and folks, and I say this as a teacher, former teacher. I understand the union's concern. I'm probably going to vote yes on it reluctantly because I think it does need that change that you talked about, okay, for equity purposes. I'm definitely going to vote in favor of the animals. I can't help it. I'm emotionally attached to them.
Okay.
That's number 3, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go, I would probably vote no on 3. You know, I'm not a big fan of the government telling private businesses how to do things. We have these free-range eggs and these free-range meats available for the consumer to decide. So from a capitalist standpoint, you know, let the people spend where they think is the best, and we'll figure out who's going to end up staying
You're
in
a true
business.
libertarian. You know that, don't you?
You
are a true you're a millennial.
I get that. Yeah, we were talking about this before the show.
Yeah.
I don't really like to consider myself such, but I guess I'm right on the cusp.
But by age you are.
Yeah.
So your mindset, those forces around you, it molds the way you think. And I'm happy because my grandkids are in your categories, younger, but approaching you. And if they think like you do, then there's help for the future. You know, you're reasonable. And I appreciate you coming on because we need that perspective. You know, I'm from a different place and a different mindset. But you are clear about your thought that less government, people should make the choices, which is a good way to fly. So I suspect that you're going to be yes on 4.
On 4, at this point in time, you know, I don't think that it's a benefit to our tax system. I think the federal government needs to get on the same page as the states, considering how much power that they have. I think that this could set up a lot of people to fail in Massachusetts. You know, a lot of people in my generation are probably going to be yes on 4. I think that, you know, as a consumer, people should be able to consume and use whatever they want. I don't think marijuana is any worse than alcohol or tobacco. The types of things that the FDA approves, from fast foods to, you know, the different types of the chemicals that we use in our Windex and all this stuff. I mean, you know, for them to say that, you know, they don't want this to pass because it's a danger to society is completely false. Because it's not a danger to society. I mean, it's really, I believe it isn't. But I do think that, you know, the fact that it's going to be rolled into our tax base, that this should be looked at a little bit more thoroughly. So at this point in time, I'm no on question 4.
So on that, you and I simpatico.
Yeah,
I'm opposed to it because I just think that you have to have some type of balance in society. I understand that we have to have some boundary lines. Even though I'm fundamentally a libertarian like you, I don't like big government, and I'm a big fan of individuality and individual responsibility. But, and the caveat is this, when I leave here to drive to English High School to do a little tutoring, I'm going to drive on the right-hand side of the road, I'm going to stop at red lights and stop signs. That is in order to keep stuff from becoming chaotic. I agree to give up some of my rights for a greater right, which is the right to life. You get what I mean? And so we have to balance. It's a balancing act. Now, we're going to move into a topic here, and we have to in our last second. How much time we have left here? 2 minutes? 20. Oh, okay. I was going to say 2 minutes. I've got a bomb, ba-boom, took place on Friday, in which the FBI nuked the Clinton campaign. And in effect, what they're going to do is reopen the investigation, apparently, and all hell has broken loose. What do you think?
You know, there's so much information to collect on this. The biggest thing that I think we should really take away from this is that, you know, all of these political leaders are people, and they make foolish mistakes just like anybody else. Mm-hmm. I think if anybody's in an elected position or in politics for over 30 years, you know, they're going to be bound to helping the people who help them get to where they are, and that's an issue. I don't think people should get into politics for a career move. I think that they should get into it to benefit their community.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Well, let me say that. To benefit the community, what about people that get into it to benefit themselves?
Yeah, that's,
for example,
I think anybody who gets into politics, their first term, wherever they're running, is probably it's probably based on a humanitarian effort. It's probably to benefit the community.
But why do we have a problem with this? Why did this boom boom take place on Friday? Whose fault was it? Who originally created the problem?
I don't know.
Hillary Clinton.
Well, yeah.
She set up the service. She set up this alternate universe that has been the subject of, what, 1.5 to 2 years. And she stonewalled bobbed, weaved, lied, and did everything in between on multiple occasions. So she is now claiming that this is an unfair bomb thrown at her when she's the one that created the problem to start with. You know, and if there was a little honesty about the whole thing, then we wouldn't be where we are.
Right.
Look at a great surprise. That's my other graphic. Here you have Comey, Loretta Lynch, then you have Loretta Lynch and Hillary Clinton. Think about this. You have the Attorney General of the United States who meets with the husband, former President Bill Clinton, in Arizona on a plane the day before Hillary has to testify to the FBI, or a day or two before. If that isn't a blatant conflict of interest, what is? This is what's got people upset. I mean, you know, if we are a nation of laws, and no man or no woman is above the other, above the law, then this is a perfect contradiction of terms. And the Attorney General, she punts. By the way, she was appointed, the Attorney General was appointed by Bill Clinton in the first place to be a U.S. Attorney, so they have history. She also worked in a law firm that looked into the Clinton Global Initiative and the rest of it. So there's conflict of interest all over the place. Comey finally gets pinned up against the wall, and he has to come back out. To start with, he punted to start with in July. You know, all the evidence pointed to at least an indictment so we could move forward, but everybody was panicking because it's a presidential election. Well, if someone's above the law, remember, Richard Nixon, and I was young enough to remember that, right? Or old enough to remember that. Richard Nixon won overwhelmingly in '72. A year and a half later, he was impeached and thrown out. Okay? That's Watergate came thereafter. Right. Do we want the same thing to happen? She's under indictment. She may be under indictment as President of the United States. You know, there's a Democrat, his name is Doug Schoen, who's in favor, a Hillary supporter, who came out this weekend and said he can't support her anymore because it's just ripped the country apart if she's elected and she's still the subject of an investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's a dangerous precedent to go forward. We have to rethink this a little bit, and that's basically the way I'm looking at it. But I don't know how you see it.
I mean, the just broadly on the election, it's funny. You jump on Facebook and you see how many people are these the only two people we can choose from, and the answer is no. There are other candidates who are running, and back in 2012, I voted for Gary Johnson. He was the guy that I voted for then. He's the guy I'm going to vote for now. And a lot of people are giving him flack because he didn't know what Aleppo was. But I'm sure if you asked him, what would you do about what's going on in Syria, he'd have an answer for you. The fact that this man isn't really big on war really speaks volumes to me. Our whole philosophy and industry on a global scale is really based on manufacturing of weapons of war.
The city of Lynn is dependent upon it, right? We build jet engines.
Right. We're really good at this type of stuff. This political campaign this year really kind of, I think, is a stepping stone for Americans to see that there is more to democracy than this or that. That compromise, empathy, and maybe considering, sacrifice for somebody else is probably a benefit.
But Sean, let me ask this. I'm sure you're too young to remember Watergate and what took place there. It was before you were born. But here's the thing. A number of prominent Republicans came out against Richard Nixon, saying what he did was wrong, even though he was President of the United States, and he was impeached. Have you heard one prominent Democrat come out and say that the stuff that Hillary Clinton did is wrong? One? Not a one. The entire newspaper industry media has put a wet blanket over the whole thing. This is big stuff. This is huge.
Right.
And yet they're not talking about it. You mentioned war. You would never know this, but who is the anti-war candidate between the two? Hillary or Trump? Who says we shouldn't be in the Middle East? Who says we shouldn't have foreign adventures?
Well, it's not Hillary.
That's right. And he's got 200 generals and admirals and 21 Medal of Honor winners on his side, right? Hillary is a neocon. That's the conservatives who used to be in the Republican Party, who can't stand Trump, who are interventionists. They're the ones that have us. We've been over in the Middle East for 15 years now. 15 years. World War II, 4 years, and we weren't even in the war for 4 years. We started in late 41, so we were in and out in 2 to 3 years, right? That was World War II. In World War I, we went in at the very end, and we were involved in that in 2 years. We've been in Afghanistan and the Middle East for 15 years, and we spent trillions and the rest of it, and she is one who would continue that. Do you folks understand that?
Why do you think we've been at war so long there?
Because of what you talked about. It's a money machine.
Right.
You know who warned about that was General Eisenhower, the industrial military complex. So if you want to do business in the city of Lynn and you want to build jet engines, or if you want to build, well, right now we better, because we need to rebuild our military now because it's been depleted. But the point of the matter is that war generates a lot of capital. It keeps people employed because war breaks things. And if you break things, what do you have to do? Got to rebuild them.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And if someone comes along and says, hey, I'm turning inward. I'm going to go America first to screw these foreign adventures. Well, don't you find that refreshing?
I think these foreign adventures that you talk about benefit us, a lot more than, people believe. It's not, the fact that people are over there. I mean, take the Haiti earthquake. I'm not talking about what recently happened, but, maybe 3-4 years ago. There are hundreds of relief organizations there now, hundreds of them. And the results of these relief organizations is, one, the newer generation doesn't know how to generate their agriculture. These people have been given rice. It's a food that they were able to eat maybe once a week, and they eat it 3 times a day now. It's screwing over their ecosystem, it's screwing over their ability to farm their own agriculture, and it's all being disguised as a relief effort. But in actuality, it's really a big, huge moneymaker so that farmers with excess grain can sell it, and then the government takes it and they send it over, and everybody's yippee-skippy America. The same thing what's going on over in the Middle East.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. That is really not different than anything that's taken place historically, right?
Well, yeah, I'm saying.
So it isn't like this is a new phenomenon.
Yeah, but we're talking about these foreign adventures as though we're over there to help people, and it's being disguised as though we're there to help, and we're really there to benefit ourselves and our position in a global government.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a perfect example. Not too long ago, there was a little earthquake that shook up Haiti.
Right.
And we had President Bush, the elder, and President Clinton, who got together, buddy. My adopted son, who put all of these wonderful efforts to help the people of Haiti, and the Clinton Global Initiative got involved. Ask the people of Haiti how much they got. And the answer is ice in the wintertime. Who enriched themselves as a consequence of that? To your point, the Clintons. Okay, now that's not, I'm not making this up. It's reality. Using the same predicate, how much of the dollars and cents that go to the Clinton Global Initiative actually go to charity?
Well, what she said, 90% of it? That's what she said
about
in the last
8%.
Debate. Yeah, but it's in actuality.
About 8%.
It's a lot less than that.
Many of the other things that they take credit for are already being done by cooperatives.
Well, yeah, they're masked. These are mass initiatives. They're being disguised as one thing, but behind closed doors or whatever you want to call it, there's a bigger mission at hold. There's a bigger picture at stake that not a lot of people are even privy to because all they see is what's on the outside, which is a humanitarian effort or a relief effort or the ability to show your more empathetic side, but they're selling these feelings. They're selling empathy. They're selling, the ability to be a good American and a contributing global citizen, to gain approval.
Okay, but let me ask you this: here's another issue that troubles me. They talk about pay equity between men and women. Now, I'm not quite sure that there is an inequity in like jobs. However, we do know that at the Clinton Global Initiative, in the executive positions, the men make far more than the women, which is an absolute contradiction of what Hillary talks about.
Yeah, I mean,
In the Trump industrial complex, right, the women have way up in the it's historically proven, and they make equal to or as much money or more money than the men. So there's another falsehood, a false narrative. And it keeps going like that.
why don't they just pay people based on the position that they have? You know, here we have 3 positions, right? On the director of operations,
Right.
Doesn't matter if a woman came in or, you know, if they're more they're going to get the same exact salary because that's what the job's worth. You know, what's wrong with paying people based on the work that they do?
Precisely. And this is what I love about young folks, the young, like, you know, the Pedro Diaz's and the Dave O'Reillys and the Sean Donahues and the folks who are the heart and soul, the guts of Lynn Community TV. The perspective they bring is one of equity. You guys aren't hampered by some of the biases that are built into people from my generation. You're far more open-minded, far more based on merit than I think my generation, other generations, including Paul's generation. And I don't know if you see it that way, but I notice my grandchildren are a great education to me.
I mean, you know, a lot of people look at the millennials generation and they think one of 2 things is like the earlier kids kind of got a grasp on it. They're a little bit more empathetic. Yeah, they may be progressive, but at the same time, they know how to make decisions. And then you've got this later generation of millennials who really just don't care about anything outside of the devices that they use. You know, for me, my philosophy really kind of it revolves around Christ and Christianity and all that stuff. So that's where I go and I try to get I get my information from, you know, the Bible, and, you know, I think of, you know, how can I be more Christ-like, and, you know, a lot of the times you're showing empathy, you're giving love, maybe when it's not even deserved or earned, or maybe you're doing something of sacrifice for somebody else. And I think that people need to just kind of slow down a little bit, stop trying to be right, and maybe, you know, be wrong a couple times, and start, you know, helping out.
Being wrong is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It gives you an opportunity to learn lessons.
Very good.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, my whole philosophy really kind of goes around the yin and the yang, all right, or wu wei, as the Taoists would say. You know, go with the flow, because sometimes if you fight against the current, you could be dragged out. You're tired, and now you don't stand a chance. Correct? So, you know, what it comes down to, I guess, I mean, people are a little bit, I guess, some people would say that our generation is moral. We have a moral type of outlook on things.
Yes, you're spiritual. There's a spirituality in you that is refreshing.
I mean, I don't really want to, you know, speak on behalf of my own generation, but the way that I do it is, you know, I put my family first. They're number one outside of God. You know, and I usually put myself last on a list of priorities, and it's because it's, you know, life for me isn't about myself. It's about how many people you can have and maintain and love you. And, you know, I think we've kind of gotten away from that as a society, and I don't mean to kind of steer this thing into that in that direction, but, you know, with all of the rhetoric and the hated exchange, and, you know, whether you're Blue Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter, if you're pro-gun, you're anti-gun, you're pro-abortion, anti-abortion, who cares?
That's too polarizing, isn't it, Sean?
I mean,
is it either or? Isn't it too polarizing?
Well, yeah, that's what we're looking at the American political system. Is either you're Democrat or you're a Republican. And, you know, I think one, in this whole political race, Hillary's had 30 years in the public light. She's going to be held to a higher standard than Donald Trump, let's face it. And I do believe that. I do believe that.
Yeah.
So, you know, Donald Trump can't really do much outside of what he's already done that's going to cause any mass chaos. I do believe that there's a power in other parties. I do believe that people should look up candidates like Jill Stein and Gary Johnson. You know, I don't agree with these guys through and through. I don't think that they know everything and they're the best candidates. But I do think that, you know, the next best candidate should be somebody that opens the eyes to the American votership, that democracy isn't just based on a two-party system, that it's really based on 4 or 5. And we need these outputs, you know. We need that input from other people. You need indifference. You need people to tell you, hey, yeah, you know, these chickens should be treated the right way. You know, you're not treating them the right way. way, so people can make an adjustment. They can look at it through the eyes of others.
You know, Sean, it's been a pleasure having you here. We're going to do a little wrap-up. I think you did a great job, and I appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. I got
and
one more.
I hope you. Go ahead. Say what you
I
have
got
to
one
say.
more plug. Right here on Lynn Community Television, you can see our shows on the ballot questions. We got sheriff forums, and we've got the state rep forum. Election night results will be aired live from 8 to 9. Air times. You can find all these programs right on YouTube and our website. You can go to lyntv.org, and if you're interested in the elections, lyntv.org/election. Sorry, Joe.
No, absolutely. Listen, folks, this is why Sean's here, and I hope we have him again, because we want to bring to you the great work that you're doing here at Lynn Community TV, and I appreciate it. For all of us here at Lynn Community TV, have a great week, and don't forget to vote. It's very important.